Hi, my name is Chris Smith, and this is the Wild Vittles podcast. I'm extremely new at this. I'm sure I'm going to make some mistakes in the way of making a podcast, but I'm going to learn along the way. One of the reasons that I'm doing this is I feel very strongly, very passionately around wild game cooking and also utilizing wild game. And it bothers me when I hear people say, venison, duck, maybe trash fish, the category that they would use. They're gamey. They're not good. And that bothers me. There's a tremendous amount of resources online, books, magazines around how to get a deer, how to get an elk, how to duck hunt, how to fish. I think there's limited information out there really about how to be a good wild game cook. Now, behind me are some really good cookbooks. And there are some great resources out there online. And there's people like Hank Shaw. Hank Shaw has changed my life. But I think there is room for an amateur, such as myself, who wants to learn along the way and become a better wild game cook. I think I'm on the journey, but I still want to get better. And I'd like to help you get better as well. So essentially in this podcast, I want to help people find better ways to utilize their game and overcome that stigma of being gamey. And I also want to help people utilize their wild game meat. If you think about, how much a white-tailed deer weighs, let's say it's not a great big one. Maybe you get a 120, 125 pound deer, you dress him out, and let's say, the yield of meat out of that is maybe half. So maybe you get 60 pounds, 50 pounds, 52 weeks in a year, you need to eat a little over a pound a week to be able to get through that deer in a year. And I know some people, well-meaning, they just don't have the tools, I don't think, to be able to prepare deer in a manner, venison, that they are happy with and they do it on a regular basis. And I've learned along the way and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I want to share that. So not calling anybody out because I was there. So anyway, I'm rambling on a little bit, but I want to be a resource. I want to be a help, and I'm doing this for fun. So please don't throw rocks at me if I make some mistakes along the way. Please do give me some feedback. I do have an Instagram, Wild Vittles podcast, where, shoot me a DM. Tell me what you think. I'm also going to try to put this out on YouTube as well as podcasts. Really tinkering and trying to learn. So today's episode is around burgers. Fundamental. And I'm going to start out with some just really basic stuff, right? And I think burgers is a good place to start. Everybody has ground meat from their elk or their deer. And we will touch on other things like turkey and fish and ducks and things like that. But I'm going to touch on deer because that seems to be a conundrum for a lot of people because it's a large quantity of meat you get. Ground meat is extremely accessible, versatile. It's easy to defrost. It's easy to store. It's handy, and I actually grind a lot of my deer. I get a couple deer every year. So we're going to talk about burgers this time. Normally when I get burgers, I just don't even put any fat in it. I grind it right up. Why do I do that? Generally, it's a little laziness on my part because I don't take the time to go get some fat because generally I'm kind of in a hurry to process it. I live in a warm climate. I'm in Texas. And so I generally put it up with no fat in it. Sometimes I've experimented. In this recipe today, I'm doing some elk. This is actually the elk that I took last fall. It was my first bull elk that I took with the bow. I was so excited. That was a 5-year journey for me to finally take a bull elk. And so that bull doesn't have in the ground meat any fat other than the fat that was on him. And that fat is not really good kind of cooking fat. So what you're going to see in this recipe, and I'm going to kind of demonstrate it if you're watching the video version, is I actually put in bacon fat. And so I'll talk through that. But if you're going to do burgers, and if you read, a lot of the popular literature, Hank Shaw, again, fantastic influence on me, he says, look, if you're doing a burger, you got to have fat. It'll help it stick together. It keeps it moist. There's some tricks of other things you can do, but it needs some fat. So I'm going to mix bacon in. And then I'm going to cook it like a burger. Now, I do put a few other things in there, like Worcestershire sauce and a little bit of spice. There's a cowboy cook that I follow on YouTube named Kent Rollins. So it's Cowboy Kent Rollins. And he sells this Red River Ranch seasoning. Love it. Highly recommend it. So I'll be sure to put the links to those notes in the show notes. But anyway, I digress. Let's head to the kitchen, and we'll step through kind of the mixing and the making of the burgers. Then we'll go over to the grilling, and then we'll see the finished product. And I'm going to try to keep these pretty tight and pretty short because this is a pretty simple recipe. We'll do some in the future that'll be maybe more complex and have a little bit more to it. And hopefully along the way, my videos are going to get better because I'm going to be learning. So with that, let's head to the kitchen. So here we are now in the kitchen. And as you can see my setup here, I've got some simple things. Worcestershire sauce. Going to add that into my ground elk that I've already defrosted, put into the bowl. I'd say a dash, but it's a little bit more than a dash probably. It's probably about 4 or 5 dashes. I like a lot of strong flavor. Also, I've got some seasoning here. This is Kent Rollins Red River Ranch. I use a generous amount. You want to mix that in. And then you can see this large pile of diced up bacon fat. So I tried to cut it as fine as I could into small bits. I've got 1.5 pounds of ground elk and approximately 1/2 pound of bacon. And you might say, well, that's a 25% fat ratio. But if you think about it, bacon isn't 100% fat, right? It's I don't know, maybe half, 60%. So you're kind of getting more close to a 20, 18, 15% fat ratio. Now, I hear people say, don't overwork the meat, but you've got to get this fat worked in. So my ground meat in this situation was a little bit frozen. So I had to really kind of knead it together, work it. Finally, once you get it, thoroughly mixed, I like to make it into, kind of, I don't know, a tennis ball size or smaller. And I'm really doing this so that you can get them equal before you start making patties, because it's easier, in my mind anyway, to kind of measure these out. Given there's approximately 2 pounds there, I'm shooting for about 6 patties. And as you can see, I'm kind of patting those out. Once I'm satisfied that I've got them all together, we'll start to make that patty motion. Kind of, you want to get the right thickness. You want them thick enough they're going to be juicy, but not so thick that they're going to take a long time to cook and get burned on the outside, right? So working these through, and you can see I'm having to kind of rework some of the sizes. I'm not an expert in making hamburger patties. There are actually some pretty cool tools if you're doing your own processing to pre-make hamburger patties. Of course, you'd want to put fat in. It's a good time to kind of stop and talk about fat. You can actually go to the butcher and ask for pork back fat. You can ask for beef fat, and I would encourage you to weigh that fat or ask for a certain amount of weight. Weigh your ground meat, work out your percentages, and you can actually pre-make that. I would encourage you to mark your own meat if you're processing it and putting it up, what percentage of fat you put in there and what kind of fat, because year to year you'll have a little bit of bleed over, and you may go, well, did that have pork fat or beef fat in it? It's not a big deal, but it's nice to know, because there's some recipes you don't need any fat, like taco meat. In this instance where I didn't have any fat mixed into the meat, the bacon fat is giving me a quick and easy solution. I don't have to go to the butcher. I don't have to look for some fat to mix in, but you can always fresh ground it. You can take a roast or something else that you want to grind after you've thawed and make fresh ground meat. And there's a lot of folks that really speak highly of that. I'm generally in a big old hurry and don't have time for that, but I know I've seen videos where Danielle Pruitt from The Meat Eater really kind of espouses the benefits of that. She'll set out enough to cook for the week, grind it, and it'll be fresh. And I guarantee the fresher grind is probably much better. But in the world I live in, the reality I live in, that doesn't always happen, and that's not always an option for me. One other thing that you'll notice from the patties themselves, if you've been doing beef hamburgers for a while, I would also emulate the same thing, is put a thumbprint in the top of every one of those patties. And the reason why is because they will plump up in the middle, and putting that thumbprint, kind of that divot in the middle of them, will help them be more even and cook more evenly. So, pro tip. So you can see here I've got 6 patties all ready to go. And I think we're just about ready to head outside. I've got a lump charcoal fire going in. I've kind of got a smoker / grill, and that we'll be putting on. So here we are at the grill. I've got my seasoning out, and it is a ripping hot fire. So probably can't hear because I don't have the mic close enough, but those are sizzling. I did clean off that grill first. A good, easy, and kind of hygienic way to do that is to take an onion that maybe it's not too sightly, not too good, or maybe just half an onion, cut it in half, rub that onion over the top of that grill, and you can tell you've got a good hot grill because of a good sizzle, and it'll also pick up any debris or anything from the last time you cooked. I do like to season those burgers kind of as they cook. That's my personal preference, not mandatory. That's a good hot fire. I like to let it go, depending upon how large those patties are, 3-4 minutes. Flip those over, kind of get a good check on them. I can see here that we've got a good sear on the first side. I do use a meat thermometer to make sure that we're getting all the way through. I'll tell you what, a meat thermometer is something that will give you a lot of confidence. Once you're a more experienced cook, you can kind of tell by feel and by look, but there's some things I still would really recommend it. If you're ever going to have any wild pigs, feral pigs, you really need to make sure you understand that temperature. You can see here that I've already checked them after I flipped them. They're looking in good shape. I've actually put some cheese on. I had to use shredded cheese because my sliced cheese had a little bit of mold on the corners. And my wife really appreciates a toasted bun. So getting those in at the kind of the finishing stage. I've also checked these for temperature, and they are thoroughly done. I like to get them up to about 160. I know some folks like to get them a little bit less than that. And then here, voila, we've got the finished product. Is just a beautiful burger. It's simple. It wasn't a lot of ingredients. It's got cheese. It's juicy because of the bacon fat. Some good toppings, and it just makes for a wonderful meal. So that's episode 1, and I know it was simple, straightforward, but what I want to demonstrate is that cooking wild game, cooking a deer burger, doesn't have to be rocket science. I will get into some more complex things, but my first few episodes I want to focus on some simple things. We all need those quick and easy meals that we can do with wild game, because one of my goals is really to fully utilize the wild game that we work so hard to take. And you really need to be intentional about doing that on an ongoing basis, or you're going to find yourself in the fall with a freezer full of deer as you're getting ready to go out and get next year's deer. And that's not a situation any of us want to be in. So let's honor that game and go out and utilize it in a manner that is worthy of the animal and the life that you took. So episode 1, what's next? Some of the things that I want to focus on as well is maybe interview some people. I'd like to interview some people that some of the cookbooks I have back here. I'd like to talk to those authors. There are people on Instagram, which have a small interaction and community with others that, they're hunters or fishermen, but I know they cook. I'd like to hear about what do they do? How do they prepare their meals? I want to share that. I'm also tips and tricks, more recipes. We'll get kind of more advanced, but I really wanted to start off with some of these simple things that I think you'll find a lot of value in. I may not have mentioned it before, but I'm shooting this in both video and audio, so I'm going to post this on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, it's obviously has the videos with it. If you're listening to this on just podcasts, just know that if you want to see more, there is a video component as well. I really appreciate folks reaching out to me and letting me know. Do you have questions? Do you have things that you'd like me to focus on? You can reach me through Instagram on the Wild Vittles podcast, or on YouTube, Wild Vittles podcast. Now, there is another channel on YouTube that's Wild Vittles. It's been dormant for quite a while. It's about foraging. I think you'll tell the difference. So really appreciate everybody's support. Hopefully the videos, the audio is going to get better. My performance will be better, hopefully, as we go forward. And hopefully this is going to be fun. So really appreciate everybody. And as we sign off, let's do it all for the love of the game and get cooking. All right. Thank y'all.